Ready. Good morning. Are we on?
See how that does.
Yep. We're on. Good morning and welcome to the subcommittee and of public safety. We have before us three items today, and we're going to go ahead and I know, Mr. Chairman, you have another one like I do, and we only have this room for a little while, so we've got to kind of move this morning very quickly on that. Let's go to Chairman Chokas, and if you'll give us the substitute to House Bill 631, the LC number is 392964S. Is that correct? We've had several of these subcommittee changes here. So, all right, Chairman Chokas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. That is correct. Chairman Green, LC.
Oh, I'm not sure that's what we. Just turn it toward you. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. Now, I was afraid.
That'll work.
Yeah, that'll work. I was afraid sparks were about to come out of that thing. Anyway, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I just want to repeat that I'm speaking from LC 392964S. And simply put, this legislation allows our E911 centers to collect information that is voluntarily given to them by residents within their district that may have an autistic adult or child, or anyone else that has difficulty in verbal or nonverbal communication. And the reason for this is because if a first responder is called or there's a problem at a residence and the E911 center does not have the information, then problems may occur. This legislation was brought to me by a former deputy sheriff by the name of Ralph Stewart. I don't know if you know him, Gerald. I think you do. Anyway, and he's got a son by the name of Logan who is autistic. And he was concerned that, if someone came to his house for whatever reason, they may not understand that he's autistic and have difficulty in communicating and upset him. And so that was the reason for this legislation. It's the information is provided totally voluntarily. There is no cost involved because the E911 centers already have the software necessary for this information. And that's simply put. At the beginning of it, we have just, we're not changing the title of the code section, but just for this legislation, we're going to be calling this Logan's List. It's not underlined, so that won't be in code. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you very much on that. Representative Fraser, you have a question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chokas, you did state that the E911 already have the information as it probably relates to the address and location. So how are a young person or older person with autism, how do they communicate?
No, it would be for the parent or guardian of the autistic child or adult would contact the E911 center and say, at this residence, my family member is autistic, so make sure that if anything ever happens, the first responders are made aware that there is an autistic adult or child at that residence.
Thank you.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right.
Representative, Representative Jody Lott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't know if will know the answer to this because it's a bit random, but we just passed legislation on the House floor maybe a week ago or so about the license, very, very similar, except that the driver's license stops. Actually, license maybe attached to the license plate number, that there was similar information being provided, whether or not a driver of that vehicle may have some limitations, verbal or nonverbal, even limitations, and so that the officers would be prepared when they came to the door, that things may not appear as what they would expect. Is this in the same code section as that? I know that's kind of random to ask you that on the spot, but and I was just curious because these two seem to belong together.
Very good. A very good question. They do and they don't. When there's a automobile stopped, they call a different number, and that's for the transportation, and that's usually what the trooper or state or sheriff's department or police department, and that identifies the tag with the driver. These individuals that I'm talking about will not have a driver's license, and they will be maybe going on a trip with their parents or their guardian, but they will not be in a position where they would, in the vehicle, in a position where they would need to be communicating with the officer. This is strictly for the home in case there is a fire, in case an ambulance is called, in case there's a problem like that. And it puts it in the E911 center, not in that, I think it's the criminal file that the GBI operates.
Okay. Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman? Is that
Okay.
fine? So I think this is a fantastic idea because, and I think that everyone would be in agreement. We have probably all in our capacity run into a situation like this where there is somebody that has been, and in my case, actually arrested and put in jail, and it was a disabled adult, minimally disabled, but certainly living at home with their parents, and it was days before they knew where their child was. Or adult child, and that is uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable for everybody involved. So I absolutely agree with this. Can you just explain just a couple things, because and this is, again, I am on board with any time we can have a voluntary system where we are allowed as guardians to be able to create, make sure that our law enforcement has this information. I mean, I think this is critical. I've actually had those conversations with my law enforcement. How do we go about doing this? So who provides these standards? It says provide standards for operation and maintenance of an information system. This that you are, that we're about to vote on, I'm sorry, I was on line 18. What is the expectation on who will create these standards for operation and maintenance of the information system?
Well, the operation and maintenance of the information is for the E911 centers. The software to collect this information is already in the system. So all they have to do is, and if you're familiar with the E911 system, it's based on address. So they type in the address, it pulls up the residents there. This would be another line that says that there's an adult or child that's autistic and unable to communicate. So when that first responder, and that may not necessarily be law enforcement, it may be a fire department, it may be EMS or whatever, they are aware of that and informed of that as they go to the residents. What you were talking about earlier was the Georgia Crime Information Center. And the Georgia Crime Information Center is with driver's licenses and car tags. So it's similar, but different.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions of the chairman? Okay. Now's the time.
appropriate time? Okay, that was quick. Move to pass, please.
Okay. We have a do pass. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion for a do pass and a second. Do we have any further questions on House Bill 631, LC 392964 as substitute? Okay, then I'll call for the question. Those in favor of House Bill 631 by substitute, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay. It is going to the full committee at 12 o'clock.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I know that
Assuming
everything.
appropriations is finished by 12.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
put me back in appropriations too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
All right,
members of the committee. Thank you very much.
much, and thank you. Okay, our next one, Representative Crowe. Good morning. You have House Bill 495. You want to come to the same place. I'm not going to try to go to the podium, Mike. I'm going to do it just like he was able to state there. So if you'll do House Bill 495 and to the members, it's LC 412900. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. But thank you for allowing me to come and present to y'all this morning, and for letting me stand over here as well, so I don't get the same sparks that Chairman Choke has got. This is a GBI department bill. What it does is it takes a position and moves it from the GBI back to the Sex Offender Registry Review Board. Back in 2012, there were some investigator positions that were transferred to the GBI from the Sex Offender Registration Review Board, or SORB. And those positions were classified as analyst positions. Later, those positions were eliminated because of budget cuts in the fall of 2019. And SORB had already begun doing some of the work and investigative work back themselves. So what they're looking to do now is move one of those positions from the GBI back to SORB and change the nature of the GBI's responsibilities related to SORB. House Bill 720 last year was introduced, and had it passed, it would have transferred that one position over there. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. I believe it got to the Senate, but it didn't make it through because of time constraints, because of COVID. But it didn't pass. But in fiscal year 2021, the state budget, FY21 budget, it still reflected the transfer of funds for one of the GBI positions from the GBI budget and added those funds to SORB. And in 2020, SORB, July of 2020, SORB filled that investigator position, and they are now conducting the investigative records gathering function for SORB cases. But since SORB is not able to directly obtain criminal history information, they rely on the GBI to provide summarized criminal history information to them for the SORB cases. And so the one remaining position that this bill calls for at GBI is utilized for filling those criminal history requests for SORB, because they're able to pull that criminal history and condense it into a report and give it to SORB for the review. And that is essentially the bill. And Special Agent Ryan Carmichael with the GBI, who's worked heavily on this, is here as well, if y'all would like to hear from him.
Let me ask you one question. In this year's 2021 budget, that position is funded?
Yes, sir. At SORB, I believe.
At SORB.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
is that right?
That position, those monies were allotted to SORB in the FY21 budget, but the position, I think, is still classified as being at the GBI. Is that correct? The position hasn't been, by code, hasn't been moved back to SORB, but the funds are at SORB.
Would you come up and let's make sure that about the funds here. If you'll state your name, position there.
Yes, sir.
Take your mask off. It's all right.
Yes, sir. Ryan Carmichael, Special Agent in charge of GBI GSAC.
All right. And you want to explain what position will be left?
Yes, sir. There were, through, as he mentioned, through budget cutting previously, there were positions that were eliminated. And effectively what that did after last year's budget is it left us with one position at GBI. And that person is filling that role of providing summarized criminal history information. The funding for the other position that we had at that time went over to SORB and has remained there.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Okay. Representative Frazier, you're making up for lost time, girl.
My question to you, thank you so much. What is the backlog now? Since you only have this one position and you've had it for over a year now, I can imagine the caseload, and we're probably overworking this one person. So where are we now?
As far as the backlog numbers, I don't have them. They're actually officially kept by SORB because they serve as that function. And effectively what's happened in the recent past, because of only having one person that's solely focused on running criminal histories, that's the only function we're actually providing for them. So the investigative piece and so on is being conducted by SORB, so I don't have backlog numbers.
Do you think there is a backlog?
Ma'am?
Do you think?
Yeah, I believe there still is.
It
Yes.
should, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think there's a backlog on everything that we have in the state, and we just have to work through it and be patient. I think everyone understands what we've been up against with these issues there. Do we have any questions of the author? Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. If you'll push a button, I'll recognize you.
I'll make a motion to pass.
All right, we have a motion for due pass. Do we have a second? All right, we do have a second of that. Do we have any further questions to the author? Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, then I'm gonna call for the question on House Bill 495, LC 41-2900. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. See y'all then.
Okay. All right. That dispenses for those two. Representative Bazemore, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, thank
Good.
you.
If you'll do the same thing there for to speak to the committee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I am coming to you presenting House Bill 632, which is LC 392936. And out of respect for your time, because I heard in the beginning, we only have a few more moments, I'm going to try to be brief in explaining. The bill is self-explanatory, but I'm going to tell you how it came about. My city council members brought this issue to me, and I had a personal experience with regards to trucks parking in the turn lane to subdivisions and parking in subdivisions, and not respecting the fact that there is an area, truck location, that they should be parking in. In addition, I have, and this causes a problem for our roads, and just trying to keep it safe for our citizens, and it takes it out of the hands of our citizens to report if we were to install those lights, not the lights, I'm sorry, the cameras, to record where these violators are. Because once you have a citizen contact and then continue to contact, or they believe that they cannot do anything about it, then the person continues to over and over again park wherever they feel necessary. In addition, I have been in contact with ACCG, and we're in discussion and we're working together, but I'm very aware that there's a lack of legal truck parking, that the Georgia Freight and Logistics Commission has a concern with. So we are working together, even though we have to address this issue, working together to make sure there are enough places for these truck drivers to park.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's some issues here that need to be worked out, and I appreciate you bringing this before the subcommittee this morning. And this is just a process to begin because this is a hearing, and then we'll proceed on during the summer. There will be an opportunity to invite others if this COVID lets up, and we'll have a full discussion at that particular time on that. Let me recognize Representative Frazier once again.
For the last time.
No. I don't want to hear that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Bazemore, for bringing this. I have spoken with you in past a year and a half about the same concerns in your area about trucks that are parking, but is there any notice of trucks parking? The type of trucks that are coming in and out of the neighborhood could be various trucks, right? It could be moving trucks. It could be Amazon. It could be people dropping out. Because of COVID, we got a lot of trucks that are delivering packages and stuff. And then if you got a congested area, and it could be a townhouse area where a lot of trucks are, because I've seen them. Is there any signage, first of all, saying you can't park here? Because I do see the danger part of trucks parking. And I know you've had some near misses because we've had conversations through COVID last year about we have to do something about the trucks. So is there any signage up, first of all? And have you noticed any increase in accidents?
So thank you, Representative Frazier, for the question. There is signage up in the community and as you proceed into the community prior to. However, the trucks, we are not taking into consideration that we have the Amazon and those different trucks. These are 18-wheelers.
Oh.
And yes, 18-wheelers and the ones that pull trucks.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are violating, and that's concerning us. And they are really tearing up our roads, and it's not safe for our children because the community I live in is a community across the street, and they are parking on one side, they're parking on the other. And when the bus comes to pick the children up, you can't see. And they're parking in our communities. They will find a space, particularly with mine, they go in subdivision, the phase 2 of the subdivision, because it's not completed, and they park back there.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So are these people own these 18-wheelers, or is that what you're saying? They own the 18-wheelers and they're just parking them like they parked the car? I'm just trying to understand why 18-wheeler is up in your neighborhood.
That's what.
Unless they are to deliver something.
No, they're not delivering. Some
they are
people,
owners.
Yes,
oh.
they are.
That's where they live.
That's what we're finding.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. So we need a truck.
Exactly.
Stop.
That's where they live.
Okay. Representative Lott.
So this is new concept for me. So I'm going to ask maybe what will be basic questions for you. What is the automated truck route monitoring device? What does that mean?
So it's going to look, from my understanding, similar to a camera, but the agencies or the municipalities, they are going to create, like right now, we talked about the cameras
with the
at
buses.
school.
Yeah.
Yes. So
yeah.
it will be similar, but it's going to record and they will have that so that when if it goes any further to the Department of Revenue to revoke their license or selling privileges, they will have that.
Okay. And another question here. So, and these are basically language questions just because I don't completely understand this concept, but it says operating such vehicle on a restricted local truck route. What is a restricted local truck route necessarily? Like, how would I know what that is?
So I believe you will also have an indication of signage to let them know that it is. And part of my district, Old National Highway is a state highway. So you have a lot of trucks running back and forth on different areas. They're state highways, so they will run back and forth. But then when you get into the side streets and different other streets, that's when it becomes a problem. But there will definitely be signage.
Is the expectation for a trucker that they do leave their vehicle somewhere else? And I grew up rural, so, they could drive their truck and park it in the backyard for, so is the expectation in a city or in a populated area that a trucker has a place where they stop and they leave their truck and then they commute back home? And so the trouble that you're having, I think that you clarified with Representative Frazier, is that they're driving their trucks and leaving them in a residential area because it is their home.
That's correct.
And that is the restricted truck route, all those small neighborhood roads. And just out of curiosity though, how would they even begin to place a camera in all of those? Or are you saying there's just a pattern of places where it happens more often and they would camera place in those specific locations?
I believe that is what's going to take place. And that's going to be up to, like I said, the municipality. And the complaints that we've heard a number of complaints throughout a couple of years.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you don't mind, what part of the state do you represent?
So I represent a portion of Fulton, Fayette, and Clayton County.
Okay, because I know in Houston County, where I'm from, we've had an issue in the past with on Highway 96, which is a major east-west corridor. Some of the shopping centers, if a major outlet had left that shopping center, people would park trucks for days on end. So since these are people's personal trucks, I mean, they're parking and they'll be there for 3, 4, 5 days at a time between the time that they have to take them. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so couldn't this be done? If there's signage, couldn't a law enforcement officer give them a ticket for illegally parking? Because here's my concern with the cameras. It's my understanding that a camera is not a criminal. Like if you get ticketed via a camera, you just receive an invoice. It's not even a crime, or my understanding is it doesn't even get put on your record or anything.
Correct.
So
that's what it says.
If we're wanting to try to punish where there's signage already and they can be ticketed, I want to make sure, because I understand the problem. I want to make sure that we're actually able to alleviate it, because my understanding is if you get a ticket via a camera, you don't technically have to pay it because they can't take you to court over it. So if we're wanting to actually put some teeth into this to cut down on it, cameras might not be the way to go. So as the chairman said, discussion over the interim between sessions to really come up with a way to stop this, because I understand the concern.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because you have twofold in here. Exactly what you said, the cameras and then the picture. It will then go after the third time that they don't comply or they don't pay the fine. It will then go to the Department of Revenue, and then they will revoke their license, and they cannot sell the vehicle either. So there's ramifications for this.
And that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Frazier.
Spoke too soon, didn't I?
Yep, you did.
The reason Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative Bazemore, the reason I understand where you are with this, because I used to be a neighborhood association president, and we had a neighbor, we have a very nice neighborhood, but I also have some of my homeowners that own those big old beautiful 18-wheelers. Not against them at all. That's their way of living. But they can't drive those 18-wheelers and back them up in the yard. So actually there is law on local covenants and local ordinances in cities where 18-wheelers and any other, if they're on a lunch break, they have 2 hours. and they can park that vehicle there for 2 hours. After 2 hours, that vehicle needs to leave. Nobody's on a extended lunch break all night. And I have had those situations where I personally had to call code enforcement and have them removed. Now, I understand where you are with this because the local citizens like yourself has done all of that to no avail, because all they're doing is giving them a warning, and they'll come right back and park because they don't have enough parking. And another thing is that people that own these rigs, a lot of times they don't want to pay that extended parking.
Exactly.
But they have to follow the rules and the covenant. And so this is a very good conversation, and I eventually had to just work years and years on mine until I had a relationship with code enforcement. And I could tell you their names personally, their telephone numbers, and I would call. And eventually the homeowners got it, but they had to get it with warnings. And then like that third time, they had to hit their pocket. So I do understand.
Representative Frazier, and I just need to make this statement. Thank you for that comment, because I have been the president of my homeowner association since 2006, and don't say I'm crazy. I heard that. But because where I live, I take seriously, and I want it to be a place where we can live and not have destruction. And so, yes, I have had to contact the homeowner, contact code enforcement, and exactly what you're saying, some people will comply. The problem that I found is that our covenants are not so much enforceable. And that's where I have a problem. Like the representative said, there's not enough teeth in our covenants to allow these people, to make these people comply with the rules, unfortunately.
Okay. Chairman Clark, all right, we're going to have that, and then we're going to ask a representative from the Georgia Motor Truckers Association.
So just a quick comment on all that. So it's not even just I understand too, it's not just a public nuisance and endangerment, safety. It also hurts home values. And that's, people, that's a lot of people's most major investment they make. And when you have that kind of nuisance start happening in the neighborhood or around the neighborhood, it drives down what people have worked for their entire lives too. So again, look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me call on Jay Morgan with the Georgia Motor Truckers Association. He's representing Ed Crowell and them. Good morning, Jay. Go ahead. You have an opportunity here to speak.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for recognizing us to give you just a little input on this. First of all, let me say that the Motor Trucking Association supports the idea, frankly, that commercial vehicles should not be used on restricted roads. And all I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, this morning is just to point out a couple of items in the bill that I believe are the unintended consequences of the way the bill is written. We look forward to working with the author as well as the committee to try and address those. Representative Lott mentioned the ALPRs, the automatic license plate readers, which are known to capture these images, and those are not always accurate. So we do have some concerns with regards to that, Mr. Chairman. Representative Clark, you also made a point that I'd like to help you with. Trucks are not like cars. The license plate on the back doesn't always have any relationship to the driver. And I think that also needs to be taken into consideration as we continue to work on this bill, Mr. Chairman, because the driver could be an independent hire or broker, so forth, and the plate on the back may not be related to that driver or the owner of the cargo or anything other than the company that owns the trailer. So we need to take that into consideration as we continue to work on this. I'd also like to commend the author on her leadership of the Homeowners Association. I had the unfortunate experience of having to do that at one point in my life, and I know that that's one of the most unappreciated jobs out there. So really appreciate her words on this today. And
or even serving on the board.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Chairman. But we recognize that this legislation is very well intended. We oppose it as it's written, but we look forward to working on it with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Morgan? Thank you. And to the author, do you have some final statement?
So thank you for your concerns and questions. There is in the bill, it speaks to the fact that if the person is not the owner and operating, that they can appeal this. So there's appeal process. Even with the camera and the license plate, because we do know there are errors on a regular basis, or sometimes, I'm sorry. So there is appeal process and they have that option. But I look forward to working with everybody to perfect this so that we can protect our citizens, our roads, and make sure wherever they park, they are parking in the right place.
Thank you, Representative Bazemore. And you'll have that opportunity, I believe, this summer. We'll be looking at some of the issues in this subcommittee. It may take us a couple of days down at St. Simon's or somewhere like that, you know.
Oh, that sounds nice. I'm ready. Let's go tomorrow.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. If not, the subcommittee stands adjourned, and we have a 12 o'clock meeting in here. Oh, 406, excuse me, in 406 at 12 o'clock. Thank y'all so much.